Warning. The following review of 100 Bullets First Shot Last Call is a comic from DC's mature readers imprint Vertigo. While any scenes of nudity have been edited out, the book still contains foul language, graphic violence, implied rape, attempted rape, child sex trafficking, and drug use. Viewer discretion is advised. In order to talk about the series we're covering today, 100 Bullets, I feel the need to start with the writer of the series, Brian Azzarello. Azzarello was the first American writer to tackle the book Hellblazer, one of the foundational books of DC's Vertigo imprint. In his opening storyline, Hard Time, which we covered in episode 40, Azzarello turned John Constantine from a master of the mystic arts into more of a trickster conman, and this caused a bit of a rift among the fanbase. Azzarello would then team up with Argentine artist Eduardo Risso on a Vertigo revival of a Golden Age DC Comics character named Johnny Double. Then, in 1999, the two would re-team to launch their magnum opus, 100 Bullets. The series would revolve around a man known simply as Agent Graves, visiting individuals who have been wronged by society or the law in some way, shape, or form. Graves would give the person an attaché case containing the gun, the titular amount of bullets, and documentation about the person who had wronged the individual. Should that person choose to take revenge, the discovery of the bullets at the crime scene would cause the authorities to drop any investigation, with no questions. The series would go on to become a hit with both fans and critics. It would win multiple Eisner and Harvey Awards in its entire 100-issue run. Azzarello would then go on to work on storylines for Batman, Superman, and the DC New 52 relaunch of Wonder Woman. Azzarello would even write the animated adaptation for The Killing Joke, which means he is partially responsible for... Yeah... Anyway, today we're looking at the first volume of this legendary run. This is 100 Bullets, Volume 1, First Shot, Last Call. Isabel Cordova, or Dizzy for short, rides a train in Chicago after being released from prison. It's then that she's approached by a man named Graves. Graves proceeds to go over Dizzy's history. Dizzy was a former gang member who was trying to go straight after marrying Hector, the father of her son Santiago. Then, on a girls' night out, Dizzy's group got into a shootout with another gang that left all but Dizzy dead, including one bystander. Dizzy took the fall and was sentenced to 15 years in prison. She got released after 2 years due to overcrowding. While she was in prison, Hector tried to leave the street life behind. Unfortunately, that would end when both Hector and Santiago were gunned down by a rival gang. Or at least that's what Dizzy has been led to believe. Graves opens his attaché case and hands Dizzy a picture of two cops named Swirsky and Morgan. He identifies them as the real killers of Hector and Santiago. Graves then hands Dizzy the attaché. Inside is the evidence on Swirsky and Morgan, a gun, and 100 rounds of ammunition. Should Dizzy elect to use the gun, any investigation will be dropped upon the discovery of the bullets. Graves then gets up and leaves. Dizzy returns home and reconnects with her sister Lucy, her cousins Freddie and Smack, and her brother Emilio, the latter three having taken control of the gang thanks to a lucrative car stealing operation. However, it isn't too long until Dizzy comes across Swirsky and Morgan. Swirsky begins trying to coerce some favors from Dizzy when he discovers the gun. Swirsky throws Dizzy against the cop car, telling her to prepare to go back to prison. However, the investigation is dropped when Morgan runs a check on the gun's serial number. Dizzy returns to her home and talks to her mother, who just tells her to find another man and have more kids. Dizzy then tries to talk with Emilio, but he's more interested in his business opportunities. We then go to Swirsky and Morgan while they sit in a strip joint and stew over the fact they had mysteriously let Dizzy go. This is interrupted when the two get a phone call from a mysterious individual saying he has a new plan for the two. Dizzy tries to reconnect with some old running mates when they get word of a shooting at a local gang hangout. Dizzy hitches a ride with Emilio despite his objections and finds Swirsky and Morgan standing amongst the bodies of several high-ranking gang leaders. Dizzy goes after the two cops, except this time she doesn't have the gun with her, and she gets arrested. Emilio bails his sister out of jail, and she tries to explain that Swirsky and Morgan were behind Hector and Santiago's death. But Emilio just tells Dizzy to stay out of things she doesn't understand. Upon returning home, Dizzy goes to her room and grabs the gun. Dizzy stops off at a church for some last-minute solace. There she's approached by Shepard, a man who identifies himself as an associate of Agent Graves. Dizzy wonders if Shepard is here because of her struggles. Shepard points out that it's never easy. If it was, all the bad guys would already be dead by now. Dizzy exits the church where Swirsky and Morgan are waiting. She gets into their car and the trio drive off. The two cops apologize for what happened to Santiago. They had received a wrong tip and had said that Hector was out alone. As for why they killed Hector, Swirsky and Morgan say that he was in the way of a major deal with an important client. A client who now wants to talk with Dizzy. Swirsky and Morgan drop Dizzy off at her garage as it starts to rain. As she waits, the client sneaks up behind her and snatches the gun from the back of her pants. It's Emilio. He goes on to explain that he had planned with the two cops on a major drug smuggling ring that would have benefited everyone. The only problem being is that Hector, who despite not actually being involved in day-to-day operations, was still a high-ranking gang member, put his foot down. Emilio had the two cops take out Hector and then go after the other gang leaders. Now the streets belong to the three of them, Emilio, Swirsky, and Morgan. Except Swirsky and Morgan were never going to cut Emilio in on the deal. They were only in it for themselves, and they shoot Emilio twice in the leg. Dizzy picks up the gun she got from Agent Graves and shoots Swirsky and Morgan. It wounds them, and Dizzy flashes back to her family as she finishes the two dirty cops off. Dizzy then turns to Emilio, and he begs not to shoot him. She doesn't, but she does call the police and leaves her brother to bleed to death. As she leaves, Dizzy is approached by Shepard. She asks if she's done, and he responds that that's up to her. Dizzy then gets into Shepard's car, and the two drive off. Brian Azzarello has created a stunning masterpiece of moral ambiguity. In today's society, is an eye for an eye still fair justice? And if so, what about the other 99 remaining untraceable bullets? Quote the Raven, nevermore. Agent Graves enters an LA dive bar. There he meets the bartender Lee Dolan. Lee was once head chef of one of LA's most exclusive restaurants. Then it all came crashing down when Lee's wife found hundreds of pictures of naked boys on his computer. Lee denied being involved in any pedophilia or sex trafficking, but no one believed him, and Lee lost everything: his job, his money, and his wife and child. Graves then gives Lee a picture of a socialite named Megan Dietrich, along with the attaché. He informs Lee that Megan is the one who sent the pictures to Lee's computer. Graves also states that she will be coming to the bar later, as she's on a pub crawl with several wealthy friends. Graves then leaves. Lo and behold, Graves proves to be prophetic as Megan and her friends come stumbling in later that night. However, there's too many people for Lee to exact his revenge at that point. A chance does present itself when Megan excuses herself to use the restroom. Unfortunately, Lee's chance is thwarted when a drunken couple stumbles in to fool around. He uses the excuse that he was tailing a large rat. However, Lee gets a second idea as he swipes a brooch from Megan's coat. The next day, Lee contacts Megan, claiming to have found the brooch at the bar, and makes an arrangement to give it back to her at her place of work. Lee then goes to visit two people. The first is his son Jerry, just as he leaves school. The second is Connie, his favorite performer at a local strip joint. Neither Connie or Jerry really want anything to do with Lee, but he assures them that something big is coming, and he wants both of them to come along for the ride. Lee then goes to Megan's office. Upon entering, he pulls the gun and explains why he has to kill her. He also explains that the bullets are untraceable, so he'll get away with it. Megan pleads with Lee not to kill him, offering him $1 million. Lee refuses, so she offers to put an additional $1 million into Jerry's college fund, as she had looked him up online while this was happening. Lee agrees to this. As she wires the money into Lee and Jerry's bank accounts, Megan explains what happened. She stumbled on the kiddie porn site with some friends and wanted to call out anyone who was looking for this sort of thing. The files were meant to be sent out randomly, and Lee's email just got hit by coincidence. It wasn't intentional, just random chance. The transfer concludes, and Lee prepares to leave. Except he set the gun down on Megan's desk as she was working. Megan picks up the gun and shoots Lee. As her security team disposes of Lee's corpse, Megan makes a phone call. She's got some bad news. Agent Graves is still alive. And so ends 100 Bullets Volume 1, First Shot, Last Call. How was it? Well, I think this title has a really great, solid premise. The idea of telling these kind of quieter individual stories within a larger, grand narrative of something has a really nice ring to it. Now, I do know that in later volumes we do get a bit more into the mythos or lore of the series as to who Agent Graves is, who it is he works for, who does Megan Dietrich work for, and why do they oppose Agent Graves. And yeah, characters like Dizzy Cordova do pop up again. Also, I think Brian Azzarello really does a great job of writing inner-city urban characters, and Eduardo Risso does a really good job drawing inner-city urban environments. That being said, I think a bit of a drawback does come a little bit with the old inner-city street lingo. It can get a little obtuse at times. And I say this as someone who grew up listening to a lot of hip-hop, and while not really growing up in an inner-city environment, I am at least familiar with a lot of the lingo that they are trying to use, but even I couldn't get some of this at some points. Also, the Lee Dolan story, the second story at the end of the book, is oddly clunky. It's somehow both way too quickly paced and padded out. Like, we really didn't need the whole scene where he visited his kid and the stripper. It just didn't feel necessary. I mean, this was a 2-issue story that really felt like it should have been like one big 1-issue story, if that made any sense. But those are really minor quibbles in the long run. I'm going to give 100 Bullets Volume 1, First Shot, Last Call, an A. And with that, let's see what we'll be doing next time on the Random Trade Review. Hey guys, want to recommend a book to be placed in the randomizer, aka the cardboard box? Well, check out my Patreon at patreon.com/sleepytimeforcatproductions, Productions, or just check the link in the description below and see how you can help make that happen.